All right. So today I got to see an early screening of a movie I've been waiting for a very long time, and that is Andy Machete. That's Danny Trejo, the guy who made It, Chapter One and Two, The Flash. This movie has gone through a lot of starts and stops. Originally, the guy who did Dope was going to handle it. There was going to be a Cyborg and Flash movie, but obviously that's never going to happen because the guy who played Cyborg, who used to be my employee at the Cinemark in Somerdale, New Jersey, had a huge falling out with Warner Brothers. So he's the only one really not even featured in this movie, but he's spoken about quite a bit. The kid from Freaks and Geeks, who him and his writing partner did Game Night, Homecoming, Spider-Man Homecoming, and D&D, I think they did as well. We're going to handle it at one point before it was finally handed off to the director of It. This movie started production before the management changeover, so apparently there's been like a million Frankensteining this thing together into what we eventually got. The Ezra Fint in the room is Ezra Miller, who is the star of the movie, who plays Barry Allen, the Flash, has a lot of mental health problems. And I don't keep up on what's true, what's not true. If the shit's true, fuck them. There's fuck them. But as somebody who deals with mental health problems, I hope they get better. I hope this shit's not true. Because this kid is a extremely talented actor. Going way back to we need to talk about Kevin. When they were first cast as the Flash, I thought it was an odd casting choice, and you didn't really see. I trusted Zack Snyder. And you didn't really get a chance to see anything in in Batman vs Superman. It was all security footage. In Suicide Squad, there's just the one scene. Now, when we got the theatrical cut, the Whedon, the Justice League, he came off as someone who was on the spectrum. He was clearly the comedic relief, but he was annoying as fuck, and I didn't understand why they did that to this character. I never saw Barry Allen as the jokester character, but because he's my second favorite DC character after Batman, obviously. Also, I'm going to spoil this thing, so prepare yourselves. If you don't want to hear spoilers, don't watch. Come back afterwards, tell me what you thought. So I'm 41 years old, and I'd say it was around 1985, 1986 when I started to become very cognizant of comic books were more than just a bunch of cool images. There was the stories were connected to a larger mythology and lore. And when I got into the Flash, it was first I was being drawn very bizarrely at the end. The trial of the Flash was the first issues that I ever picked up, where Barry was on trial in the future for killing Iris West. It was drawn very much like the 1950s. Which is odd because in that time period, we were in the Perez era of DC Comics. But I still remember getting that issue of Crisis on Infinite Earth where the cover is Barry holding on to the Psycho Pirate with everything burning behind him. And that's the issue where Barry Allen died. In that context, died. And then Wally West became the Flash. And he was the Flash during most of my life because, I remember that Flash #1 cover where he's running next to the Jets and number 50, when Vandal Savage shoots him in the chest and he comes back, Barry Allen's playing tennis in the afterlife. He comes back in that kind of metallic red suit with the white eyes. I still remember getting the issue, and this was the first time this ever happened. I still very clearly remember going to the local Five and Dime with my grandmother and seeing this issue. It was I just ate something, so I had something in my tooth. It was kind of gross. I still remember it was a very mundane Christmas issue. And, you get to the second to last page, there's a knock on the door, they open the door, and it's Barry Allen at the door. And I had to keep going back and rereading it to make sure that I read that right, that Barry Allen was back. Turned out to be the Reverse Flash, but still, that's the first time that ever happened to me where I didn't believe my eyes. And then eventually they brought him back, and then you have they used him for the big Flashpoint storyline, which this movie is very much, takes inspiration from. So this movie canonizes the Snyder Cut because all the references of the things that have happened before derive from the Snyder Cut. Even when Ben Affleck's Bruce asks him about, going back in time, he says that the thing that he did, with the mother boxes was so small, but what he's done now is like huge. It's a big next step. This movie follows Barry Allen. He's still trying to get his father's name cleared. His father's played by the main character from Office Space in this one, and not Billy Crudup. Iris West is in it. Barry has to get to work, but Alfred, Jeremy Irons, calls him and says, there's a Justice League level thing going on, and he's like, well, where's Superman? And he's like, well, it's Batman, Master Bruce wanted Superman, but he's busy. Where's Wonder Woman? She's busy. And he's like, oh, I'm usually like one of the last guys you call. And basically what happened is some people stole, bad guys stole this toxin from the military and plans to release it into the Gotham water supply. So Batfleck is in blue and gray, which is very cool to see. Out in the daylight. The suit looks a little weird in daylight, but still, this is a badass action scene where he's on the bike going through Gotham, and they're like shooting at him in the front. And it's Barry's job to go down in the basement and shut off the water and the gas. And he feels like he's just the Justice League's janitor. And then the building starts to collapse, and the entire maternity ward falls out the window. So there's babies falling out the window, and the alternate, the title that they send the movie to, to a movie theater, the posters and stuff, they're never usually the actual title of the movie because they don't want people stealing it and shit like that. So they always come under a code name. This one comes under Baby Shower, which makes perfect sense because all these babies are falling out of the window, and Barry's complaining that he hasn't eaten yet and his energy level is really low. And you got babies falling and he's not able to move as fast as he can. And as they're showing the slow motion, there's like scalpels going towards babies. There's like gas tanks going towards babies. So it's going to be terrible, but it's also kind of hilarious. So basically he runs up the side of the building, jumping from like debris to debris, saving all the babies, putting one in a microwave. It's a really cool scene. This movie has some fantastic visuals in it. Bruce finally gets to the bad guys, jumps in the back of their Humvee. It's very much like the freeway chase scene in Deadpool. One of the drivers sees Batman in there and just jumps out of the fucking thing, and he's gone. It goes over the bridge, and Batman is holding on to him, but he's slipping. And if he falls, the chemical goes into the water, and then Wonder Woman shows up and saves both of them. And her lasso is around Bruce, and he's like, my ego would never allow me to fail, and I wear this costume when really, if I was just giving, my vast fortune and solving hunger, we could also be solving crime. And it's like this very realization of what people always say about Batman online. And it's from here that, Barry's talking to Bruce about being able to travel back in time and being able to fix things, to save his mother, to save, Bruce's parents. And this is the full circle of the Bruce Wayne that we meet in Batman vs. Superman, to Justice League, to here, where your scars don't, they aren't who you are. We can be more. We can learn from our mistakes and be better. And I really like the dialogue between the two of them in this scene. And I think that Affleck really nails that Batman. And, he says to him, he's like, we could hang out, and Bruce is like, maybe another time. And that's the last time we see Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne. Barry gets a call from his dad about his acquittal, or the trial the next day. There was a piece of security footage that Wayne Enterprises cleaned up for him, and at no point in the security footage does his dad lift his head, so that they could justify his alibi. We see the backstory where Barry's a kid and his mom and him have this really special relationship, and they have this "I love you, I love you more, I loved you first" kind of thing. And she gave him this teddy bear that she calls Monkey, and she calls him Monkey. While the dad goes to get pasta sauce because they forgot to get it at the grocery store earlier, someone stabs Barry's mom to death. We never find out who. And Barry's scarred from that. His father's thrown in jail. So he decides that he's going to go back. And he begins to run. And it's really cool the way they handle the time travel stuff in this, because he basically finds himself in a sphere and time is cycling back in front of him. So we're seeing multi-staged images of the past all kind of circling around him in this kind of cool, just a very cool visual. He finds himself back in 2013 where his mother is still alive. He's so happy to see his parents, and obviously he has to eat a lot. He's eating all the spaghetti and shit like that, and he sees himself coming across the yard, and he has to go out and stop himself and try to explain what's going on. Younger Barry is obviously played more like Justice League Barry. He's younger, he's immature, he's constantly making like Marvel level jokes. There's a lot of humor in this movie. Some of it is justified, some of it is not. Some feels a little too but there are some beats in it that are actually really funny. Barry's roommates are these kind of like stoner burnout people. There's a dude who sleeps on their sofa, which introduces the first of the Eric Stoltz jokes. So this movie takes place in an alternate reality where Michael J. Fox was never cast as Marty McFly. Eric Stoltz remained as Marty McFly. And there's a whole run about, that. And the one dude, the guy who sleeps on the couch, has an Eric Stoltz as Marty McFly tattoo on his leg. And he's like, well, it's upside down. And the guy does he raises his leg up in the air like a cat licking itself. Very bizarre. So Barry goes about, the Zod appears in the "You're Not Alone" scene from Man of Steel. And he says, again, you're harboring a Kryptonian amongst you. And so Barry goes, look, we need to find the Justice League to make sure that we can stop them. Wonder Woman, when he looks her up, it comes up as like a birthday magician. There is no like Diana Prince Wonder Woman. He calls the lighthouse and speaks to Aquaman's father. And he's like, your wife was a beautiful fish woman. And he looks over and he's married to this like fat lady, and his dog's name is Arthur. Victor is still a football player. He hasn't had his accident yet. And there's no word of Superman. So they go to Gotham to find Bruce Wayne, and it turns out that it's Michael Keaton, and we exist in the 1989 Batman universe. Keaton has long hair and a beard, and he's a recluse. He's like a Howard Hughes type of character. He doesn't want anything to do with these guys. And they try to explain to him what's going on and all this. And their plan is, because when Bruce won't help them, they go down into the Batcave, which is, I'm not going to lie, I got chills when the Danny Elfman music kicked in and you see the 89 Batcave and you see the Batmobile. It's really cool to go back to, to that, because that is, that's the Batman of my youth. Batman, I'm a bigger fan of Batman Returns, but 89 Batman, I've made a whole video about why that movie is so fucking important to me. Keaton is incredible in this movie. He has not missed a beat. All those little idiosyncrasies from 89 and 92 are still in there. But now, given like how far CGI has advanced, he can do more. You get a bit more Batman action in this one. They look it up and find out that the ship from Krypton that landed in Russia. So they're going to go to Russia to break Superman out of a prison. Batman agrees to come with them. We have his big reveal of, yeah, I'm Batman. And they take the Bat Jet, which is a new version of the Batwing, to Russia. But what happened was Barry, I totally skipped over. So they have to make sure that young Barry gets to the lab to get struck by lightning to get his powers. See, I'm so excited, I'm like skipping over stuff. So the accident happens just as it's supposed to, but when young Barry gets his powers, Snyderverse Barry loses his powers. So they're going into Russia now with an aging vigilante and a guy who doesn't quite know how to control his powers yet. He's got the ring now, where the suit comes out and expands and he has to move into it really fast. There's a really funny training montage where he just lets it hit the ground. So they go into there, and that's where we start to get the Flashpoint story. In that, Superman is captured by the government. He's kept from ever being in the sun, because he's like a battery, and having his full power. So when we meet Kara Zor-El, she was sent from Krypton as it died to protect Kal-El. But she doesn't know whatever happened to the baby. They make an escape. They find out that it's not Superman, but they still see that she's in trouble. So Snyderverse Barry saves her, and there's some really badass action scenes with Batman in this one, just fucking swooping around and kicking ass and doing a lot of, like, he does the behind the back punch from '89. So it's really, really cool to see it. They get Kara back to Gotham City, and they get her into the sun, and her powers are restored. But Zod is coming, and they're the only ones who can stop him now. So he tells Bruce that we need to recreate the chemicals and the lightning to get me my powers, or we're not going to stand a chance. So there's a bat kite, which I think is kind of funny, and he's strapped to an electric chair, very much like in the Flashpoint storyline, but he's struck twice and he's not healing, and he's essentially dying. So Kara flies him up into the sky, and he's struck by lightning, and he heals. And now you've got two Flashes. One is wearing a modified version of the '89 Batman or the '92 Batman Returns suit. You've got Batman and you've got Supergirl, and they're heading to the desert to stop Zod from destroying the world. You have a subplot where Barry was there in Metropolis in 2013 during that whole event, and he was just learning his powers then. He's in this like very makeshift, kind of the first Spider-Man movie where he's wearing like the pajamas and the mask, and he tries to save people, but he can't, and there's a little boy he saves, but his father's killed, and he covers the boy's eyes as time restores itself, and he's haunted by that, and he's trying to get the younger Barry to understand that. Bruce and Snyderverse Barry are talking about why he stays in this universe before they go off to fight. And he's like, well, you could go anywhere, any timeline. Why save this world? And he's like, well, this is the world where my mom exists. And younger Barry hears that. So now he knows the severity of the situation, and he keeps it inside of himself. The Bruce in this version is talking about he's been fighting crime since, for 40 plus years. And he thinks that every time he goes out there and he fights crime you have the Joker bag from the end of '89 Batman 2. He's like, this bag laughs, and he opens it up and he goes, it makes that sound. The Bruce in this universe is still very much guided by his scars. I fucking love the idea that he has to touch a picture of his mother and father to access the Batcave. Like, that's just like grief porn right there. It's very much the same as the Ben Affleck Bruce staring at the costume like an alcoholic staring at the bottle in Batman versus Superman. The reason I love the Batman character so much is that it's that operatic sense of what pain creates, what trauma creates, and how we try to master destiny. And you two older Batmen in these movies, they've trained their bodies and their minds to be perfect, to do all these things, to have all the gadgets, everything. But in the end, time catches up with all of us, and when they die, there's still going to be evil out there. Although in this one, they said Gotham City is the second safest city in America, so that's why Batman retired. And we never really get a chance to see that Gotham City. I would have liked to have seen how they modernized the Burtonverse, but so they head to the desert, so they don't have to do the whole city thing, and people bitch and complain about it that so many people died. But if you rewatch that movie, I rewatched Man of Steel not too long ago. Most of the destruction is fucking done by the U.S. military or by Zod and his crew. Like, Superman is kind of like playing catch up for a lot of it, and then once he does get angry, it's two gods fighting each other. Like, what do you want? Also, I'm all for the neck snapping at the end too, because in that moment, Kal-El decides willingly to become the last son of Krypton and to carry the burden of that. So I've always been a big fan of that idea, because Zod wasn't going to stop. And he showed him in the fucking dream sequence, like, the bones of all the people, and him in the black suit sinking into the bones of all the people he can't save. Whatever. So there's a huge fight scene out in the desert where it's the military, the Kryptonian army, the Flash, and Supergirl. Supergirl goes to fight Zod, and the CGI is wonky, especially in the Russia scenes as well. The CGI on her is a bit wonky at times, a bit rubbery. I don't know. It didn't always seem to have weight to it, but that's not it didn't take me out of the movie. As the fight continues on, you got Batman doing cool fucking shit in the Batjet. You got the two Flashes using each other's kinetic energy to boost off, and doing some cool stuff. Barry creates a whirlwind with his hand. There's a lot of really, really cool, uses of effects in this one. It takes like the scene where he goes back in time in Justice League and restores everything, which I thought was an extremely interesting way of using special effects. Or even when he's going down the tunnel to get Diana the sword back, Spaghetti does a really good job in creating a clean, interesting, stylistic sci-fi visual for this one. Kara kills a bunch of motherfuckers. So anybody who gets mad at Superman killing, you're sorry. And they're doing their best to take out all of the guards, and not get the military killed. And then basically Batman's hit. He can't jettison out because it's jammed. So he kamikazes himself into the Kryptonian ship, blowing it up. But at the same time, Kara's stabbed by Zod, and her blood is harvested, and they leave. They lose. And the two Barrys are like, our Barry from the Snyderverse is saying, like, this could be a fixed point. There could be nothing we could do. But they keep going back, and they keep trying over and over and over again to fix it. And every time they're making it worse and worse. And and every time Batman dies, and every time Supergirl dies, and every time Barry, the young Barry, is stabbed by Kryptonian metal, and he's got all these pieces sticking out of him. And Snyderverse Barry's like, you need to stop. We can't do this. And we eventually find out that, I guess I left out, we'll go way back. When Barry first traveled back in time, the reason he got knocked out in 2013 was this like ghastly, glowing black thing knocked him out of the timeline. So what we find out is that was the young Barry. He's been going timeline after timeline trying to fix this event, and he can't do it. So he loses more and more and more of his humanity till he becomes this monster. So basically, Barry created himself as that. And as we see the timeline fracturing, that's when we see a lot of the cameos. You see Christopher Reeves and Helen Slater as Superman and Supergirl. The CGI is not good. Sorry. You see George Reeves as Superman. You get a flash of Nicolas fucking Cage as Superman fighting a giant mechanical spider. I fucking cheered in the theater and no one knew what I was cheering about. Some people didn't even know it was him. That was amazing. That was so fucking cool. You see Adam West and Burt Ward climbing up the side of a building. You see AJ Garrick. I think it might have been from the TV show, but I don't know. I never really watched the TV show. And that's why people they're like, well, replace Ezra Miller with Grant Gustin. And I was just like, Grant Gustin doesn't have the range from what I've seen to do what Ezra Miller does in this movie. He's playing three characters, essentially. He's playing them all extremely different. He's carrying the weight of, being goofy and being serious and realizing and watching his younger self why people treat him the way he does, what he sees himself for the first time. But he ultimately realizes that the only way to fix this is to go back and remove the can of tomato sauce from the shopping cart. And so the evil Flash stabs the young Barry, thus unmaking this entire thing. And, Barry goes back. Snyderverse Barry, I know it's confusing, goes back to that day at the grocery store. And he's standing there in front of his mom. And he's like, oh, you remind me of my mom. And there's this really touching scene, and you can really feel the emotion in it where he's saying goodbye to her for the last time. And I didn't expect that kind of emotion from a Flash movie, essentially. And he's moving really fast, takes the can, puts it on the top shelf. So that means when his dad goes, he has to look up, thus fixing that. And then he goes back to his mother one last time so she could touch his face before he goes back to the present. And when he gets to the present, he gets all ready, goes to trial, and his father is released from prison because on the security footage they have, he looks up and he's saved. Barry goes outside, gets a call from Bruce Wayne, and then the movie stopped. And then a title card came up saying that this was the CinemaCon version. And the last 10 minutes of the movie, that includes the last scene and post-credit scenes, are not going to be released until the movie comes out. So there's a new Batman, obviously, but we don't know who, because it was not Ben Affleck's voice on the phone. We don't know where it's going from here. So I'm a little pissed off, but also it was a little bit funny. But I really enjoyed this movie. It's another multiverse time travel story, which we've seen a lot of with Marvel recently. But I think this one handled it in its own way, in a very interesting visual way. Like I said, the jokes don't always land. Some of the CGI is not good, but I'm hoping it's shaped up by the time it hits theaters. But just the idea that and the other thing I really didn't like is they don't bring back the molecular score. When Barry enters the Speed Force in Justice League, that bit of music is fucking gorgeous. I love that. The suit looks awesome. Everybody was bitching about the suit. Even the helmet looks really fucking cool. It works. It really works. It was great to have Batman have a send-off as Ben Affleck. It was great to have one more adventure with Michael Keaton. Obviously this won't be the Supergirl going forward. At least I don't think so. She did a great job. Again, she had a lot of emotional when Zod basically says that he murdered an infant, and she freaks the fuck out. He's just like, he's like, we intercepted the pod. The infant did not survive. And I was just like, holy shit, he killed a baby. I definitely want to see it again, obviously with the ending too. But Ezra Miller carries this movie. The Spaghetti's directing is fantastic, because I was worried the first It movie really lands for me. The second one is far too messy, but that's also because of the source material. Would I have loved to have seen an ending where, just like in the comic, one of my favorite endings in any comic is when Barry brings a note back from Thomas Wayne and gives it to Bruce, and he's like, "You're a hell of a messenger." Because originally I thought maybe Michael Keaton was actually going to be playing Thomas Wayne. For anyone who didn't read the Flashpoint story, Bruce Wayne is killed in the alley. Thomas becomes Batman, uses the gun that killed his son to hunt criminals. Martha Wayne, why did you say that name, became the Joker. She dips her fingers in her son's blood and wipes it across her mouth. The Atlanteans and the Amazonians are this world war. Great comic, fucking comic. Great way to kick off a new era of DC Comics. Just like Crisis on Infinite Earth did back in 1985. The Flash has always been key to these stories, but that's because he's a MacGuffin. He can be used to change timelines. I don't think, I don't know. I hope that people can look past the Ezra Miller stuff. And again, if he's guilty or they are guilty, fuck him. You know, I don't ever stand for that kind of shit. But until I know more about it, I can't speak to it because I don't fucking know. But, you know, they're a fantastic actor, and I hope they get the help they need, and I hope it's not that stuff that they say, because I could see doing more of these, and I could see this person, you know, carrying them, because they do. There's, you know, I didn't expect this kind of depth from Barry Allen in this movie, especially after what we saw we saw glimpses of it in Snyder Cut, but not to this degree. So aside from the nitpicking shit that you can do, you can talk about how things don't make sense and you know the CGI and the comedy and whatever. But for the most part, I left this extremely happy. I think this is in my top DC movies. Obviously, the director's cut of Batman vs Superman I love. I know a lot of people don't. The first Wonder Woman is fantastic. Obviously, I love the Snyder cut. And Aquaman is visually stunning. I'm excited. I'm interested to see how they handle Blue Beetle. But like Wonder Woman 84 was hot trash, and so, and Shazam 2 just felt lazy in a lot of points because I liked the first Shazam. Yeah, I don't know. A lot of spoilers there. Sorry, trying to go through the entire thing. Yeah, I really, really, really enjoyed this movie. I really can't wait to see it again. And if James Gunn can continue these movies with comedy, adventure, and heart, and not just comedy like Marvel, like they have to have an epic scope to them, because DC characters I see it more as gods, and not just rely on undercutting every serious moment with a joke. Thankfully, they didn't do that once in this movie, which I was so happy about, because it allowed the characters to feel like three-dimensional characters and not just like, well, that's comic books are two-dimensional. But yeah, I don't know. I really dug it. I hope you guys check it out. I wish we were getting more Snyder. I wish we were getting more Henry Cavill. I don't know if they're. I think they'll be getting rid of Gal Gadot. I don't know what they're doing with Jason Momoa. Although Idris Elba is the Flash. Be kind of interesting. Ezra Miller and Jason Momoa were the only two that appeared in Peacemaker. So I don't know. Yeah, man, I really, really dug it. I really did. And I could talk about The Flash all the time, the 1990 TV show I was such a fucking fan of. I still remember the very first time seeing Batman, The Flash, Dick Tracy, and Wonder Woman all on the cover of TV Guide and being like, holy shit, like, we could get a Justice League movie one day, Never happened. But, the show was this cool Danny Elfman did the score. The same costume designer who did Batman did the John Wesley Shipp suit. It had a kind of Batman the Animated Series vibe where it was modern technology but old-timey cars and clothes. They even had because Mark Hamill played the Trickster, and that's like proto Joker with the voice he's doing. He even has a female sidekick at one point, Jinx, who I felt like was kind of proto Harley Quinn. And they even have an episode with the Gray Ghost in the Ghost in the Ghost in the Ghost in the Machine episode, and he's dressed sort of like the Silver Age Sandman, or like Matt Wagner's Sandman Mystery Theater, where he has the gas mask and the fedora, which is a lot like the Gray Ghost episode of Batman the Animated Series, where Adam West provides the voice, playing alongside Kevin Conroy. They didn't. There was no. I thought it was weird. There was no Linda Carter cameo, but she was just in Wonder Woman 84. I thought we would get a George Clooney as Batman one, but we didn't. Yeah, man. When you get a chance to see it, let me know what you thought. But this is a big thumbs up for me. I was excited to see it, and it did not let me down. Nitpicking aside, little things beside, this is my favorite movie of the summer so far. This, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Evil Dead Rise have been my favorites so far. I'm looking forward to Indiana Jones, but the reviews aren't good. But still, it's fucking Indiana Jones. Yeah, that's it, guys. Ride the lightning. So hopefully this series can continue. Hopefully people dig this thing. And a fitting send-off for Michael Keaton and Ben Affleck's Batmans. And now we're going to get the Brave and the Bold, so we'll finally get the Bat family after all these years. Although I would have loved to have seen Affleck in a Death in the Family story, because I felt like Leto finally got the Joker in that post-credit scene of Justice League, but that ain't the way that Warner Brothers wanted to play it. So, all right, guys, peace.